Right. They will plan the auditor. Right, this was if a company collapse and if shareholders lost millions, who's responsible? Is it auditor's responsibility? Or is it his bad luck? Yes. Whether auditor should be accurate. Or even is it okay to have a reasonable care? In audit language, it says whether auditors are watchdog or bloodhouse. Yes. Auditors are කියන්නේ watchdog ලද bloodhound ලද ඒ කියන්නේ කපා කන බලද මුර බලද. What do you think? Watchdog means they just this one will catch it, ne? Or watchdog means they must be accurate. Right? They must be technically wrong account to actor, ne? What do you think? They should be bloodhound or watchdog. So this is about the auditor, they must be bloodhound. You believe it is okay to be watchdog. How can you go to justify your answers? Well, I thought the Murabalu Namek. We're going to return him at the name of the detector like give some justify your stance. What is the you can use even the chat GPT to refer to. At least let me know. How to justify your answer? Your opinion? They must be accurate. It's very simple wrong. Independent part. Now, one can make it justify that. Rather than they go look bloodhound or actor. And one can have to justify it. Or they justify that justify. Can you figure out? The power Brahma work. We believe that they must be first of support the other. Well, I tell you know this. Okay to have a watchdog. This is about the virus pragmatic. We all know that auditors are a very important part in, especially in companies. Say as an example, every company, the law says every type of company should have an auditor. Right? And if the company is still a capital and turnover is more than a specified amount, then there must be a qualified auditor. Basically, auditors are, yes. Now, you mean, yes. Now justify your opinion. Oh yeah, accurate, 100 simple advance. Long before, this report said true and correct, right? But today, what does it say? Next year, in the again, but is it okay now?
Yes, sir, now it's okay.
Right? At justify your answer. You say, yes, it's good enough that they have to work as a watchdog, right? With a reasonable, yes, okay. No? So you say, no, they must be detective. Detective is simple, but then they must be executive. Okay. Okay, that's right. Then the statement that you have with now. हम में डिबेट करने से मेरे को एफिलिएट किया था मेरे को अंतर से सपोर्ट कर right yes what do you say what's the problem now बलागल की अंदर की बात उत्तर आती है मैं नहीं मानता बोला yes Kailangan niwalo kasi break करते हो ना ओकर उत्तर पागंड exam मेरा दाना पास right whether they are yes exam मेरा दाना पास करता है whether they are both logo right now right have a nice debate then yes get the answer right so auditors are ingat kami online bala chat GPT bala tiyan की बात उत्तर है no second case right so you know the auditors are such an important part of the company it says that every type of company should have a auditor and with the some stated capital and some type of compliance, there must be a qualified auditors. Right? So we all know that auditors must be a independent employees, right? Independent parties. So we discussed throughout our lessons. You will see almost all the positions of the Compliance Act are there to protect the independence of the auditors, right? So, so their duty is to prepare the financial statement. I mean, shareholders there. So to whom they make their report, audit report? Basically, they are appointed by who? Samaniyagul appointed shareholders, right? Basically, the directors are appointed by the auditors are appointed by the board. Board directors are appointed, right? But if board does not appoint, then the shareholders can appoint them at the meeting. If both are not done, then even the registrar general can appoint the auditor. Whoever appoints, right? Basically, their report is to shareholders. That is also important part of the auditor's role. Auditors may be appointed by the board or registrar general or company, but basically their report is there for the members of the company. Generally, we are liable to the person we are appointed. But auditors are basically they provide their audit report to the shareholders, but not to the person they appoint. And that audit report must be whether the company financial statement give a true and fair. Now it says true and fair view of the its affairs. So all special business entities are required to be audited. Right. So basically auditors are appointed by the board, right? Board they can come appointment, but it's not the law, right? So this is a relevant section. The first term of a company may be appointed by the board of directors of the company before first AGM. Before first AGM, maybe there are no shareholders. Therefore, the board can appoint the auditor. Right? But if board does not appoint auditor, then the shareholders can appoint auditor at the AGM. For company meeting, they can appoint auditors. If both do not, then even the registrar general has to appoint auditor because every type of company should have an auditor. Why companies need the auditor? Company auditor getting only is it a requirement for a sole proprietorship to have auditor? No. Is it a requirement for a partnership to have auditors? No. They may have auditors, but it's not a legal requirement. Right? Any type of business, there may be auditor, but it is not a legal requirement to have auditor. But for a company, it's a legal requirement. Why? A company with a lower game against auditing for you. It's not a lower game here. Auditors are in that one, that's in that one. Auditors are in on first. They're very low tax. But for a company, it is a low. That is because there are issues about the company governance. Right? Companies are belongs to the shareholders. As a PXC, it's a PXC, you all may be a shareholder. But you never know what is done by the board of directors because management and ownership is different in the company. Right? So that is why you need to have an independent part. Right? So that is the role of the auditors, right? So they fill that gap between the owners and the directors. Right. So that is why they need to be independent assets, right? So basically, once they are appointed, yes. How long it valid? Auditor's appointment is for how many years? 2 or 3. Yes. Yes. Nice answer, Snail. Yes. Excellent. 1 year. Basically, their appointment is valid from one AGM to another AGM. 1 year, right? AGM. So, once they are appointed, so if they are not replaced, resigned or removed, right? If directors were not removed, replaced or resigned, then law believe they are automatically appointed for another. Company can remove it. The auditors may resign, or the company can replace them with another auditor. If there's no replacement, no removal, no resignation, then the law believes that they are reappointed for another year automatically. If not, they have to, yes, resign at the next AGM. Who can act as auditor? Who can act as auditor? Whether limited company can act as auditor? Partnership can act as auditor. What about the individual? Can you act as auditor? No. Why not? Is there anyone in this class who can act as an auditor? Who is perfect man? How he differ from others? They are everything in a phone. Is there anyone in this class who can act as an auditor of a company? You all can act as auditor. Right? If you have your own company, less than 500,000, stated capital law less than 1 million, 10. Right? But you won't be able to act as auditor of a limited company or any company which has more than 1 million. So the higher order agriculture is not number right? Right? If it's more than that, then there must be a qualified auditor. I don't think any of you are qualified here as auditor. Well, 1 million, right? Right. So, I'm not talking about that. I just want to know whether a limited company can act as auditor. No. Right. In Sri Lanka, no. Individual, if they have a qualification, yes. Partnership, if they have a qualification, yes. Right. So almost all the audit firms are, I mean the popular audit firms are firms. Firm means a partnership. Not that audit firm. Okay, it is already but yes. KDMP, EMI, PWC. Then what are they? They all are partnerships. So partnership may welcome, right? So partnership may be appointed by the firms named to act as auditor, provided that all the partners are qualified to act as an auditor. Right? So firm can act, but all partners must be qualified as auditor. Of course, CA members are then firm can act as an auditor. Right? Right. Why limited company cannot act as auditor? Right. So these are the qualifications of auditors, right? So qualification. If they don't have these qualifications, they cannot act as auditors. That's why this you have to be a member of CA or registered auditor, right? Registered officer, you have to be a member of CA. Why only member of CA can act as auditors? CA members are with Lapulang, SAP members are. SAP with Professor Jay Markaben. Vidhan Sir Ben. Really? The controller. Why only CA members can access auditors? Hey, you pay the accounting department to give the bank. Hey, you pay accounting department to give the professors like a bank. They will under belly that police accounts belly. Tiny policy. Hey, you will under tiny policy. Started experience game on. Accounting department, first year, second year, compulsory. They go along. But it's from I will chase. Right? Command CA members are but still they cannot act as a auditor. They are not CA members, they cannot act as a auditor. Why? So the math full one comes through. And it's good to help. And CA members are happy. Account to that already. Activity, anyway, activity, that activity, only the members of CA can act as auditor.
What's that? You would be done.
But they cannot act as lawyer if they have not passed the attorney section. For example, GST has never been a lawyer. He cannot be for any purpose before the mortgage because he never sit for that one. Lower authorities, one of the lawyers complains that if they have not passed the attorney section, then they cannot act as a attorney at law. That is nothing to do with the qualification and the accounts and all, right? That is because only the members of a professional recognized body can act as a auditor. To act as auditor, they have to be a members of the recognized professional body. Being a member of that organization, they have a contract. They have ethics. If they breach or broken any of those contract or ethics, then that organization can expel them from the membership. If there's no such a control, then there's no way to regulate them. So that is why only the members of a recognized professional body can act as a auditor. Right? Then if there's any breach or there are some there's an agreement between members and the professional organization. Right? Then they are bound by their professional ethics. If those ethics or any other agreement between the auditor and the in Srilanka it's a CA, that professional body, then that body has the authority to expel them, right, from that organization. Then they can act as auditor. That is why every year you have to renew your license. And also you have to prove that you have some type of relationship with that body. That is why it's their responsibility to make you aware, to update you, to give you training, right? And you also have to be in touch with the organization. Members, so this color disclosure inside the unexpected able to work in a villa, maybe they can Suzuka update, right? update curve, right? And that is the reason that only the members of it is almost same as any other aspect, right? Only the members of a program can access the auditor. Right. ඒක තමයි මොකක් හරි තියාගන්න අවුරුද්ද පාසා එක කරන්න ඕනේ නේ. ඒක කයිනත් මොකුලක් නැතිව තමයි පේපර් මාක් ඉස්සර කෙනෙක්. නේ. අපවත්ම CA එක රිලේෂන්ෂිප් එක නැතිව ගිහලා පේපර් මාක්. ඒතකොට අවුරුද්දක් කරලා පේපර් මාක්. ඒක නම් මොකක් හරි රිලේෂන්ෂිප් එකක් තියාගන්න.
ඒකම කොහොමද කියනවා?
Apart from that, these are the again, there's a disqualification like directors. So, if they are not a member of CA, then they cannot act as auditor. And if a person is a director or employee of the company, then they cannot act as auditor. Why? There may be auditors in a board of directors. Right? There may be number of auditors in a board of directors, but they cannot act as a auditor of the company if they are a board member. Why? A director can member of CA, but still cannot act as a company auditor. Why? They are not. I'm independent vendor, right? If you are a member of the board, then you can't be independent, right? So therefore, even though they are auditors, they can't act as a company auditor. And if he is a partner or in the employment of director or employee, right? Partner of the right? Director can not be a director, director is girlfriend and boyfriend and auditor. Then it's good they have used the term partner, right? And now his spouse, husband, wife, case again. There are other partners, right? Maybe a same partner, maybe opposite partner. If they are partners, right? Then director person, director girlfriend, auditor. Auditor. But spouse was used to American director girlfriend, auditor company. But not home independent way. Girlfriend again was there, so it is also audited again independence. So then they can maintain the independence. Then, if a company is in the liquidation, our next topic, right? The liquidator may be an auditor. Then again, he cannot act as a company auditor. Again, the same thing again, independence. That they cannot act independence. Right? And to be a body corporate is also a disqualification. What is meant by body qualification? Body corporate? Body corporate or limited company cannot act as a auditor. Body corporate is an artificial person. Right? The limited company can act as a second firm can act as a auditor. Right? Or second, but only individuals can act as a directors. But to be a body corporate is a disqualification to act as a director of the company and the audit of the company. Why? Body corporate company is a bad audit. Why do you think? It has to be either individuals or firm. Partnership individual can do right. Lanka, there are few countries they allow. There are few countries they have permit some type of compare to act as audit. But in Sri Lanka it is prohibited. Why do you think? Why limited company cannot act as a auditor of a company? Yes. Why is that a limited company auditor in the value? Independence. Yes. No, it is a limited company, the auditor can extend the value. Do you like in your company auditor be a limited company? What comes to the very company auditor limited company? Some countries it is permitted, but we all know all over the world, all the popular auditors are partnership firms. Some others do not, they are popular. Right? That is because law believe as an accountant or auditor, your liability should not be limited. Right? There will be no limited liability for a professionals, especially auditors. Right? Therefore, that's the main reason that limited company cannot act as an auditor. They should take unlimited liability towards their accounts and accounts. Right? Limited company. So Srilanka, next, one of the Kodakama Magi liability 100. Next, that's 1 that's 10,000, that's 1,000. Next, okay, right? So they should be liable without any limit. They are client for the audit that they come to. That's the main reason. Apart from that, for limited companies, you know, there are some reasons to disclose. But in accounts audit, there are some type of situation where you cannot disclose. Means a limited company is a law. There are some disclosure. Therefore, only individuals and firms can act as a auditor. The main reason is the unlimited liability and some disclosure requirement. Right. If any of them, even they cease to be a director, partner of such a person, still to act as auditor, they have to wait 2 years. Only 2 years after they can act as a auditor of such company. Right. If a director wife girlfriend has then I'm girlfriend divorce. Still, they only can act as a director after 2 years. So they have a only connected, right? So you can see the independence, to protect independence, the action they have taken. And the auditor fees. How much you will be paid one day? And how much you expecting? Yes, me hard work at the house marriage. He expect or not? Then get again, this is that. And this is 12,000. Maybe chapter was on the other day. Yeah, the parliament is another farm. Maybe. Reasonable. Never 12,000 girls, I can't believe this. This is common in many industries. My life. Cheap labor. You can see the comparison. Students go there, we can't. The things we have control, but we never. Diesel okay, some department, you cannot find a decent place with a decent salary. We have some options up here. Ethical issue. That's not true. That's the argument. Right? You are entitled for some allowance, but they must be, yes, the proper person to respect the basic expenses, to cover the basic expenses. The ethical issue, the moral issue, Legal thing, well, I go to legal can me go to like we like you can be. But very common in any industry is a cheap labor. They steal in the labor from the African. If Sabina used to be very careful, some of the minds, 100,000 anyway exception. Okay. There are exception cases, but in many cases, it's around 40, 50,000. But there are some instances they go to 1,000, 10,000, it's very they were addressed among the one of the students there will address. They come address by our thing. Kalame ke dente kartu na me golla ke power and salve ne ke kaya yata kara ganda. But this is it's one eye opening case, ne? So it is a yandipa 40,000 not 30,000 not netta yandipa. Where has power? I will reason 30,000 not. But anyway, so you are looking for that money for 3 years or 2 years? 3 years. ඊට පස්සේ ඔය හිතගෙන කමන්නේ 12,000 අවුරුදු 3යිනේ කියලා නේ. ඒතරම් ලයි හොඳම අවුරුදු 3 ගිහලා කමන්නේ නැහැ නේ. ඊට පස්සේ ඔය හිතගෙන හරියයි කියලා ඊට පස්සේ දුන්නේ එහෙම තමයි. ඊට පස්සේ කියනවා now you have to have experience as an auditor. ඉස්සලා දැන් වගේ experience කියනනේ. ඊට හොඳ පදියක් ගන්නලා auditor කෙනෙක් වෙනත් experience කියනවා. Yes, again, we have to work for a minimum salary for another 2-3 years. Right. Still, it was done that. Lamai Hambila, Galle divorce, Lamai Talavella, also one about the coming there, but right? Because the other Hataya Hatis Pakvilla, the Hani Mugukara and the Verona, come up. Anyway, so I'm not talking about that. That depends on it's good that your standard will depend on your skill. Right? So therefore, there's no limit, right? According to your skill, right? Qualification, you can demand your salary. Probably the minimum will be 300,000. The maximum, there's no limit. Maybe 1 million, 5 million, right? However, yes, the law says. The Act doesn't talk about the amount of the salary, but it says it must be fixed. Right. So, Section 155 says the fees and expenses of an auditor of a company should be fixed. Why? Why auditors' fees and expenses can be fixed? And fixed nothing. And you exchange with the benefit. The law says, but law we can Section 155 of the Companies Act says auditors' salary must be fixed. Why? Whether 1 million or 2 million or 100,000, it's not been fixed. Why? The civil provisions are there with the judge's salary as well in the Constitution. Constitution again, judge's salary right? The judge's salary and pension shall not be reduced, only can be increased directly. There's a fixed variable. It only can be increased, cannot be decreased. Judges like salary Constitution. I make a fixed rate on More than another. What do I declare the one? Director suddenly. Make a tab with not very good. Make a Kaladunata, Adukan. Then they can act independent. Okay? But without thinking of their self, whether it is increased or decreased, now they again can act as independent person without any fear of self. They can make a very correct. So it's a fixed amount. It is again there to maintain their independence. Doing the favor salary. So it must be fixed. So fixed salary is also there to maintain the independence of the auditors. Right. So who will decide it? Their salary will be decided by the person who appointed. If they are appointed by the board will decide it. If appointed by the company will decide it. If appointed by the registrar general of companies, then he will decide. Okay. So then section 154 to 165 is about the auditor's role. Who is the auditor? You see here, officer of the company or not? Whether auditor is an employee or officer of the company. Officer. Companies Act by interpretation section 529 interpret the term officer. Right. Interpretation section के बैठो 529 देखिए officer क्या है interpretation. ठीक है officer includes manager, director and secretary. So auditor is not there. Right. Auditor is not considered as an officer of the company, he is an employee. But a different type of employee, am I right? We discussed. He can compare to the other type of employee. Employee can kill and cut even question the board at any time. But it's a different type of independent employee. But this person is employed. Right? But sometimes if they give as independent person for about the expert opinions for prospectors, in such a case they may be officer. But just for audit purpose, they are employees. They are different type of independent employees. Right? So, auditor will check the accounts and accounting records of the company and prepare the audit report. That's his main job. Main role is to prepare the audit report. Right? So he prepared the audit report for the company's shareholders, company's members. To audit the financial statement and prepare audit report is the main role of the auditors. Right? So he bring in main job. Right? To audit the financial statement and the prepare audit report according to the financial statement available at the company. And the report will say if the company's annual accounts, that's what it should say, right? The report will say if the company's annual accounts have been properly prepared. Right? As auditor, you have to say whether the company's annual account have been properly prepared in accordance with the Companies Act and the other audit and accounting standards. And if they give a true and fair view of the company's financial affairs. Auditor will also consider if the information given in the director's report is consistent with the annual account. Right? If in the auditor's opinion the accounts or director's report does not comply with the Companies Act, then he should say it in his report. So those we can summarize the auditor's duties in this field, am I right? The main duty is to prepare the audit report. So you prepare audit report, why? Well, audit report it's a law. It's a section 163 of the Companies Act. It's a Companies Act that it was that law that auditor of a company shall make a report to the shareholders on the financial statement audited by him. It's a law. That's the main duty of the auditors. And it also says what should be included in the audit report. Right? Audit report එක හදන්න නීති ඒක කම්පැනි එක කියන එක. ඒක මොනවද තියෙන්නේ? ඔයාලා හදනවා then yes actually you all have seen the audit report, right? So what is included in there? The basis for opinion, the scope and limitation of the audit. ඔයා දානවා නේද? දැන් ඒවා දාන්න. බුලත් හිතන හින්දා CEK president හිතන හින්දාවත් නෙවෙයි. That means that's like it's a breach of law, right? It is section 163(1). It says this should be included in the audit report, right? So, audit report was the act the Companies Act 18. The basis of opinion, the scope and limitation of the audit, whether the auditor has obtained all information and explanation that were required, whether in the auditor's opinion, proper accounting record has been kept, whether in the opinion auditor's opinion, the financial statement and the other group financial statement given true and fair view of the matters, right? So, whether group financial statement comply with the requirement of section 151 and the 153. So, you do all those things, you write every simple thing because it is a requirement of the Companies Act. And another main duty of the auditor is to avoid the conflict of interest. And it is also within the duties of the auditor to issue a certificate of solvency and to determine the fair value of the company's assets, including the shares. Right. So they should avoid conflict of interest. An auditor of a company should, in carrying out the duties of an auditor under this act, ensure that his judgment is not impaired by reason of any relationship with the interest in the company or any of its subsidiaries. So auditors are parties like judges. Right. The society is well aware about the independence of judges. But unfortunately, people, society are not aware about the independence of the auditors. But you can see, right? In the constitution, there's a separate chapter about the independence of judges. The chapter independence there must be fixed appointment. 65 they are all there to protect the independence of judges. So civil provisions are there in the Companies Act to protect the independence of auditors. But I think unfortunately the people are not aware of the independence of auditors as they do relating to the regarding the judges. Judges are independent not to care gana patrovina hadine. Auditors are independent because whom accurate when don't but law expect nothing but auditors must be independent. Right? And they should avoid the conflict of interest. Muka kalkirana hal misu danne hada lagi girlfriend tama audit. But they get another right. Muka kal sambandhat tibil lagi ek company muka sambandhat share astira buy to you should not act as a auditor of that company. Right. We told that auditors are employees, but when you go through their rights, you will see they are very different type of employees. They enjoy, yes, special privileges that's not available for general employees even under the employment law. Right? Some unemployed survivors rights keep right to access the books and records at any time. Next, sometimes they are not available even for the shareholders. Right? Shareholders have access maybe during the business hours, but auditors have that right at any time. Right to get explanation from company staff, including directors, with or without orders. Right? So they are not available for the general employees. They have a right to get explanation from the company staff, including board of directors, with or without orders. Right? Or not, they will be like again, they will not be again. Employees, director, all can get explanation. Auditor connect. Right to receive notice of general meeting. Basically, Who participate in the company meetings? Company meeting was the only Samani. Company meeting was the members. Shareholders, right? Auditor is not a shareholder of a company. He is not a member of the company. Right? He's an independent party. But he has the right to receive the notice about the company meetings and to attend the company meetings and even to speak at such a meeting. What is that difference, right? So it's the special right of auditors. When a company members of the meeting, but auditor can go and he even can speak at such a meeting. The right to seek legal and technical advisors. Auditors are not expert in IT. They are not expert in law. In such a case, it is always advisable to get the advice. It is also permitted. It is your right. Right? Someone done as they advice, right? Right? Done now, letters. Advice, right? That there are no pending cases against this company. Okay, right? But still they take it because they won't take that risk, right? Because they are not expert in law or maybe other technical issues. It's a right of theirs. They have a right to get the advice on special areas, especially IT and law. Compare case maybe practically its value is different. So therefore, you need to make sure that there are no any pending cases against this company. So it's always advisable to get such advice from a lawyer. Can you let that right? You have to. Right. Then try to claim remuneration. So basically, this is again the unique right. As auditors, basically, if you are employees, you have to do what your employer say. Employee can be accountable. It's the employer's duty to obey the instruction of the employer. But as auditors, they have a right to refuse the audit. Commence the audit. Audit take a pattern and the requirement here, right? Auditors have a right to refuse to commence the audit. Right to question the board. Right to qualify their report. Whether it's a clean, adverse or unclean qualify the audit report. Unclean you would not mang the nega company. Qualified or right of indemnity. Right? If there's any expenses or whatever, so they are not liable. Then we'll discuss few cases. I'm not going to discuss them in detail, but because we are not going to be lawyers. However, just to show you the seriousness of the profession, in almost all those cases, the auditors were imprisoned. Right? Seldom of the Lanka and there's no auditor general. Seriousness. Concern the auditor general, like cover up right. Royal Mail Street Packet Company case, some of the classic cases that I have mentioned here, you can just go through that case. Many cases, true and correct, it is sufficient to say as a true and fair then correct care that is a true and correct care. Then true and fair care. Right. So those are the cases the auditor had a very close relationship with the accountant, and made all the account change to make and to let the investors to know that company was profitable, but it was not. So when people invest the company, they rely on those facts and details of the prospectus and whatever the auditor says. Once they bought shares, then only they know that they were false system. Such a case, in a similar cases, you may be either wrong for reckless negligence act or maybe under employment law. But in these type of cases, they are also crimes, right? Therefore, there are punishment as well. Take a professional negligence and your compensation delay. Even civil cases. But to falsify the report with the help of the accountant is a crime. Right? Eva crime, eva apara, right? White collar crimes that may end up auditors being in prison. Right? Civil value, apara, right? And also it is clearly against the ethics. Auditors ethics are yes. It's a breach of employment contract. Breach of ethics, then probably you will be sacked from the professional organization. Right? Maybe you have to pay compensation. Right? It's a professional negligence. Under that, auditors may also be liable for the third parties. Right? Otherwise, we are only liable for the members. But as a result of your false statement, if third party rely on that and invest in that company, even as auditor, you are liable for the third parties. And lastly, it is a criminal offense, even you may be imprisoned. Right? Another judgment, I can't make a clear photo. Make it again, I can't make gathers for that term. So I put that auditor is the both dog, not a blood hound can make case again. Make a Tamara use can. You got nothing else. Judgment is made, judgment make the judge can. Kingston cotton mills case again, Tamaka right? Well, make have a sentence with that is a bunch of widely again interlap. On someone where made judgment when they go to tell some expert on this. Then one Lanka, although Hatam is a campus hanging Supane. This is a Supreme Court area. So they have almost dedicated time. But like a case again, Gable Dunya, case guidelines for the university. Professors are also attacked on a very so likewise, yes, a monotone membership organization do not need once they go to court. So 100 minutes, it's a duty of an auditor to bring to bear. Yes, bear on the work, he has to perform that skill, care, and cautious, which a reasonably careful, cautious auditor would use. So this is very similar to a duty of directors that we have discussed under the duty to not to be reckless and negligent, but duty to use their skill and knowledge. So this is the same duty, right? As auditor, you also have to use your skill and professional. And also, auditors cannot be reckless or negligent. ඒකම තමයි detail. Reasonable care එකකින් වැඩ කරනවා. ඒකෙන් කියන්නේ ජීවිතේට වලට වර්ධිත බෑ ඒක. Reasonable skill. If they find without looking at the inventory or whatever, it's a reckless negligent act. If the auditor scientist that you have done, the trainees has done for nights, it's a reckless negligent act. Yeah, the reasonable invent bal. Yeah, the ship bal advance but they have to use the reasonable skill and care. And auditor is not bound to be detective, right? ගොඩාක් අය හිතන්නේ ඔඩිටර්ස් වෙනවා කිව්වහම කිරිම කියන්නේ මේ ඩිටෙක්ටිව්ස් වෙනවා කියලා කම්පැනි වල නේ. ඒ තමයි කිහිප දිනක නේද? සංස්කෘතිය එඩිටින් එක ඩිටෙක්ටිව්ස් එහෙම තමයි කියන්නේ නේද? තහස් පොලිසියක වෙලා සාමාන්‍ය කියන්නේ එහෙමයි ආම්බි උනත් ප්‍රයිවට් උනත් නේද? හැබැයි මොකද උසස් ජජස් කියන්නේ. So judges says lamai yes, and auditor is not bound to be a detective. They are not bound to be detective. Or as was said to absolute his work with sufficient or with the foregone conclusion that there is something wrong. But again, I go to detective so when that's done, මෙතන හොරු ඇති නේ මෙතන හොරු තමයි ඉන්නේ මොන් වැඩි කරලා ඇති. එහෙම යන්න ඕනේ නැහැ කියලා කියනවා. එහෙම යන්නේ කවුද? එහෙම යන්නේ හොරු. තමන්ගේ හිතේ හොරකමක් තියෙනවා අනිත් ඒවා හොරු කියලා හිතාගෙන යන්නේ නේ. එයාලා එහෙම යන්න එපා කියලා. Right? You can trust the right employees of the company and they have done a good job. Right? ඔයාලා හිතන්න ඕනේ මෙතන මං විතරයි හොඳ එක අනිත් ඔක්කොම හොරු කියලා නේද? Right? ඔලිට තයන්නේ නේ නේද? Right? ඔයාලා තමයි යන්නේ මෙතන ඉන්නේ හොරු කුමාරකට තමයි ඒ ලෝවලින් කියන ඔයාලා එන suspicious mind එක යන්න එපා. එහෙනම් මොන mind එකද යන්න ඕනේ? Inquiry mind එක යන්න. Suspicious mind එක. Right? මිනිස්සු තකලා මිනිස්සු හොරු කියලා යන්න එපා කියලා. Inquiry mind එකෙන් ගිහිල්ලා මොනවද තියෙනවා නම් හොයාගන්න නිසා මේ මෙතන ඉන්නේ හොරු මෙතන වැල්දක් කරන්නේ කියලා mind එක යන්න එපා because you can trust the tribe employees of the company. It's that employees that make that company to that they were not you. So you can trust them. Right? මේ company මේ million දාව යන ඔය තත්ත්වය ගන්න තියෙන employees තමයි so you can trust them. Right? Well, no, tell him again, suspicion mind again, something wrong with that. He's the first dog, not the bloodhound. He's justified in believing tribe servant of the company in whom confidence is placed by the company. He's entitled to assume that they are honest and rely upon their representation. So you are entitled, right? You are entitled to assume that the employees are honest. And you can rely upon their representation. After that, either a corridor or another. Right? You can trust them. You can rely on their representations. Right? You are entitled to assume that they are honest. Provided he takes reasonable care. That's the only thing law expects. Provided auditors take a reasonable care. Sadhana they take a presumption rather full one committee. Right.
Okay.
This is another landmark case, London and German Bank case. Very short but very, yes, very wide. It was felt that the auditor should be honest. Right? That's simple, ne? Honest people, why? Are you honest? Mr. Key didn't care when I am honest. According to in a heart. Even the auditor must be honest. Local accuracy. Well, then you may do some mistake, but you must be honest. Right? Auditors Mahaluku don't see that. Honestly. That's the lowest step of it. If we independent, be honest. Use your reasonable care. So, auditor should be honest. He should not certify what is not believed to be true. Right? You should not certify what you don't believe to be true. Right? So they should not sign what they don't believe to be true. Right? And should exercise reasonable skill and care. It's not accurate care, reasonable skill and care. Right? So before he clarifies what he is believed to be true. It is not the, this is also important. It is not the part of auditor's duty to give advice to shareholders or directors. It is not the part of the auditor. Right? Okay, 75% auditors they address the board and the shareholders. But it clearly says it is not the part of the auditor's duty. If you want to do that type of job, you better to have a consultancy firm. Right? For advice and directors or shareholders or audit firm, consultants firm. Right? Auditors kind of make what's on the way, board data, shareholders or advice, right? The auditor's duty is confined to examination of financial information and expressing an opinion on the financial statement audited by them. That is their duty, right? They will ultimately see the financial statement by the audit report. It was taken opinion. That's the advice they will give. Right? In Sri Lanka, right? So apart from the compensation, so you know almost all the main things about auditor and auditors are set in the companies about their appointment, their role, right? About the audit report and what should be included in the audit report and how to protect auditors' independence. So they all are in the Companies Act. Apart from that, we also have a Sri Lanka Accounting and Auditing Standards Act, right? Which is Act number 15 of 1995 with some amendment. That established the Sri Lankan accounting standards and auditing standards and provide for the Sri Lanka Accounting Standards Monitoring Board. Right? Section 2 and 3 of this Act says that the Institute of CA, Sri Lanka, shall adopt accounting standards to maintain uniform and high standard in business accounts and adopt appropriate auditing standards that is necessary to govern the conduct of the audit and account. So, according to Sri Lanka now follow the international standard, right? Okay, that is auditors in legal perspective, am I right? So probably you know your ethics and your organization, but it's not right. So that is how lawyers or judges or law see the role of auditors. Yes. Let me have, if you have a hard copy, let me have the hard copy of your file. Basically, resolution must be on the letterhead. Resolution and company letterhead. Other thing I'm not a you don't have a complaint.
Well, I think you that it.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you will be on the next week. Okay. Then you get a lot. Then I say.
Actually, what did take the dance? Remind us to teach that. Actually, my phone.
Namaste.
Then again, we can't get photos to get the.
Can you continue? Who absent for the online test? How many of you in the class you think? You didn't get the class again. Of course. We make a WhatsApp group. Then we got 10 students, right? Here, 24 small presentation. For parents, okay. About Colombo to testing. 10 slide presentation. So that's it. You make a small slide, 10 slide is okay. Read about the Colombo stock exchange. You can also include about what are the requirements to be a listed company and also to put the requirement to be a listed company. Also have one slide which about the Colombo stock exchange and the same currency. It's an exchange duty. What the step is to make a presentation on Colombo stock exchange. Your presentation is whether you have one side, it's about one side about the same kind, security service can look in that. It's not equal to one. And the requirement to be listed company. All of you can make it to the right. All do as a group. All absence group. Take a power first side, flip sides. July will give you a mark manually. Right. So we can. When you want it. Next week. There is next week or next day, we do it the last 2 days. You have some other potential for next week. Next week. Week after. That will be the last week, right? What's the last date of your HS? February 15th. February 7th. That will be next week or week after. That's the last date, right? Right. We can start last main topic, winding up. On the very first day of our corporate volunteers, we have discussed and explained that company is very similar to a human being. So if you get accident to contract, like borrow money, so you always through all the lectures we try to compare to a human being. As a natural person, we are born, we do act, and we die. So this truth is even common for the artificial person as when the artificial persons are formed, they also do act, they contrast, they do business, and sometimes they success, sometimes they fail, just like human being. So, however, failure of a company cannot compare to the failure of a natural person. If we fail, probably may affect or they are so few others. But failure of a company, then we end up with the global disaster. Right? So therefore, if the companies are failed, unsuccessful, then they are wound up and dissolved. Therefore, this is common for even natural and artificial person both. Failure and success is a part of our life. So if company fails, probably in 99 occasions they are wound up and dissolved. Then this solution can be treated as a death of this person that we were talking for months. Right? So winding up is not the day. At the end of the winding up order, they are dissolved. The dissolution is the death of the person. Right? So after this lesson, you will be able to identify what is a winding up, the different type of winding up, and to describe how this winding up comes and in that procedure, and explain how to distribute the assets after that winding up order. So these are some of the classic cases in business world. I'm sure you might have heard it. The case could have had a loan case in with a loss of 638 US billion. We have just finished the auditor's report. The main reason behind the collapse of Enron was the role of audit firm and legal firm. Audit firm and legal firm was the main reason behind this case. Enron was at one time 10th largest company of US. 10th largest company of USA, but 2 years later they were bankrupt. Arthur Anderson was the audit firm. It was said at that time that they are like vending machines, money machine, because they manipulate some of the shares and all. It was completely done by the Arthur Anderson reviewer, untrue statement and made the artificial value of the shares of the company. But it's important is in this case, even when the company was bankrupt, even at that point, Arthur Anderson was at the legal firm. Both were sending receipt for their fees. Okay. Even for the bankrupt company. However, because of the technical reason, they were not guilty. Audit firm and legal firm they were not for the technical reason. Some company will be bankrupt. But you know, there are ethics, there's good or bad. For some other reasons, the both legal firm and the audit firm were also bankrupt in 2 years' time. Another US company, yes, it's also bankrupt with a loss of 871 million. The Austrian company, right? So therefore, we only talked about the popular PLCs, but it doesn't mean that small companies do not back up. Even in Sri Lanka, there are a number of private limited that also back up day by day. So these are some of the recent collapse of companies. 2023, Wilco is an English company. Almost all these companies are wound up as a result of Corona and lockdown, right? So many of them were the very business movie hall, right? Because of the Corona and the lockdown, people, yes, almost all the movie halls were closed, and the weddings are not moved, right? You can see. So they are collapsed because of those global disasters, right? Indian company, you know, India also have a huge company now. Cineworld, right? Davis Biden, right? So there are Indian companies, international company, UK country, right? So they all were result of the Corona. So they, because of those collapse of companies, thousands of investors, right, paid to help. Some of the Sri Lankan experience. We have Trump bank case, golden key case. So these are recent one. Mahal Financial said that's a case of with company, golden key, right? Golden key case. And the ETI is, yes, still it is not finalized. The recent result in Sri Lanka is the most recent one is I think ETI, right? It also has a repair. Golden key was very popular, But then there's a local bank case or 25 years old. How many of you have seen this man's funeral? That is a photo of his funeral. He died about less than 2 years ago. How many of you know that he was there? Yeah, I guess I know that he can. I guess I know. Srilanka very hate of it. You know, like for the but you know that at one time he owned 60% of the land in Colombo. Colombo district gave the land value 60%. We don't his constructions. Say the group it to help the Taba. 60% lands were all below the system. You know many. I'm not sure about that. People think it's story about the country. Because court ordered a private field. It was not offered for public. So the court ordered it was done with that. Immediate family members at that time. But it's a business name, right? So if I can say the Hataka, I think I to make it immediate family members are like how about done it next, or you will lay to get up done very private funeral was ordered. I think this was there. It's the one and Talana not in good money. It's the thing. America shopping games to me. Right. So that's why I said this is common even for the natural person or even for the artificial person. What do you think the reason for this curve and collapse? What do you reason? You don't get on it. I got some reason for curve and collapse. Come on. Yes. Business में तो हेतु वाक्य तो कोई ना आया। ये हम बैठ गए तो बैठ। Business की बात है। ये सेमा में क्या किया तुम? Business करते थे हेतु ना। क्या करते थे हेतु? गोल्डन सी क्या ना जितना किया तब सामान कहने चले इतना ले। Poor management decisions, okay. Poor management decisions, right? What is? बोलो कि मैं सोलिटर्स का भी नहीं कहती है तो आप इतना इसमें मैंने सामान रखी है सारा बहुत नहीं तो कंपनी करप्ट से तो हेतु वाला तो कहता है ताकत में आपको लेकिन इसलिए तो there is not enough capital. So even though there's enough capital, they have properly maintained the capital needs that those need. But yes. Product failures, okay. So, also in the legal domain. That all of them will take over. They will die. Photo the survey was done by the that's what this. Economic crisis. Economic crisis, okay. Yes. I'm not going to focus on the economic crisis for me. I will make Corona. Corona in the Mangasan and movie host them. Good luck. There are some out to another music from the other name. The option that has to within the okay. What else? product quality issues. Poor cash flow management. Those are some common reasons for the company collapse. I have mentioned some of them here. Inadequate capital, inadequate control over the working capital, or management inexperience, right? Management shortcomings, accountancy failings, unable to respond to change. Change may be a political change, cultural change, social change, or maybe technological change. IT use AI use. So those are some common reasons for the company collapse. But only the companies themselves know the real reasons behind their failures. Whereas we only can discuss the common reasons. So, however, company cannot be formed informally. Like partnership or other business, you can't informally commence or start business, limited company. So company can also wind up informal. It's a very formal procedure. Company can only be formed according to section 4 of the Companies Act. And if you want to wind up the company, it's also a very formal procedure that also can be done according to the provisions of the Companies Act and the winding up rules and regulations. So there are two ways of ending the company affairs. There are two methods of ending the company affairs. One method we can say non-terminal method of ending the company affair, or maybe the terminal form of administration of affairs of the company. So winding up is a termination form of ending the company affairs. But there are some non-terminal ending the company affairs. Say as an example, we will try to discuss if we have time. In fact, that's what we should need to discuss. Those are the important things, how to run the company without termination of the company. That they include mergers, acquisitions, purchase. For the company, companies in a distress situation without winding down. It's a termination form. What you can do? Because winding up of a company serves no one. Company companies are there to run, not to wind up. Because winding up of a company may affect PSA you don't keep second 100 BYD, you think. Lanka, you never know. Thousands of people affected, maybe culture, maybe region. Therefore, that is such a serious issue to wind up of a company. Therefore, business people should look for non-terminal form of ending the company. Yes, if the company is in the distress situation. So, some of them were recognized by the Companies Act as well. Companies are recognized. The companies cannot run their issues dispute. They can go for amalgamation, mergers, acquisitions, takeovers, administratorship, and there are some other voluntary arrangements. So those are the things that they should look for. However, if still it is not practical, then they have no option. They have to wind up, because even though it is not good to wind up the company at all, it is equally not good to let a wind up company to run. Therefore, in such a case, the law will take action to wind up such companies. So, if company and the law decided to wind up the company, then it can be a very formal method of terminating the company affairs. So winding up is a terminal form of administration of the affairs of a company. So usually, at the end of the winding up, companies are dissolved. The dissolution of the company can be treated is equal to a death of a company. But remember, winding up is not the end, it is not the death. Then what is a winding up? Winding up කරලා company එකක් තියෙනවා. හොඳේ. ඒක ඉවර වෙලා dissolve කරලා පස්සම company එකක් නැති වෙනවා. So for the accounting students, winding up is a collective process. It's a collective process. What happens in the winding up is all the assets of the companies are collected and then they are realized according to the companies act and the that's so very so whoever. So what happens in the winding up is all the assets of the companies are collected because winding up is a process whereby the assets of the companies are collected and realized. The result is that then they are by discharging all its debts and liabilities, and if there's any balance, then they will be distributed among the shareholders or members of the company. So it is also a process which prepares the company for its case. Because at the end of the winding up, 99.9 companies are dissolved. So this solution is the death of a company. Therefore, during the winding up, it prepares the company towards its case. In a winding up, it is not tight yet. It may be a paralyzed person, but still there is a person. So in good sense, we can say winding up we are like the bankruptcy of a company. Even though I use the term bankruptcy of a company, but in Commonwealth countries, we do not use the term bankruptcy for a company. We use the term bankruptcy for the individual or partnership. For the company, we use insolvency, liquidation, winding up those terms we use for the companies. So, however, almost all the law relating to insolvency are based on the bankruptcy law. American they use the term bankruptcy even for the companies. Commonwealth countries have used that. So, almost all the rules in bankruptcy law are based on the winding up law. However, there are some differences between bankruptcy and the winding. We are still seeing now. If you know, we are coming to the bankruptcy like over here. Fully hard up, but they are not. I think one of the bankruptcy like here. But why did you can wind up the company voluntarily even if you make good profit. Therefore, winding up may be either solvent winding up or insolvent winding up. Therefore, winding up may be either solvent winding up or insolvent winding up. Solvent bankruptcy once a person is bankrupt, it doesn't mean it's the end of that person as it. Right? Even though you are bankrupt today, maybe you can die as a millionaire. Although if a company is bankrupt, company is insolvent, then they will be dissolved and the name will be deleted from the list. Therefore, there will be no person thereafter. The least bankrupt can be done. I'll give you the So winding up, we also use the term liquidation, right? Yes, can only be done according to the provisions of the Companies Act and according to the winding up rules and regulations. So, in many countries related to the bankruptcy and the winding up, there's a separate law called insolvency. It's a separate subject. Corporate law, insolvency law, subject. However, we do not have insolvency act. Therefore, winding up of company is also part of the Companies Act in Sri Lanka. Winding up an insolvency act. Take a separate law. These are some common reasons for winding up. When the company is insolvent, then creditors wish to have its assets applied in payment of debts that are due them. Therefore, they can pass a resolution and company can be wound up. Sometimes companies are solvent. Insolvent on solvent, but still members want to wound up the company in order to realize the investment realized by represented by them. Then even the solvent company can be wound up by the shareholders. Or maybe as a result of amalgamation, or maybe as a result of operation and mismanagement, the registrar also can file a case to wind up the company. So those are some common reasons to wind up the company. The most common reason is anyway when the companies are bankrupt. If the companies are insolvent, then the creditors or shareholders can file a winding up petition. Some common purpose of winding up, mainly winding up provides the fair and equitable distribution of its assets among the creditors. Therefore, to make sure the fair distribution of its assets is the main purpose of the winding up. If there's no such a proper procedure, those who have some type of relationship may get their portion or their representation. The winding up case is away because in winding up, all the creditors are treated equal. All the creditors are treated equally. Therefore, it provides a procedure that allows for an equitable and fair distribution of the company's assets. And also, even if companies are they are not to wind up but to run, if company cannot serve the community, right? If the company cannot pay their debts as they hold it, right? Then they will get credits from the banks, then some other financial institutions, then some other people. Then there may be some secured, unsecured credits from all over the people. It may spread like a pyramid. So therefore, it could be a disaster. Right? There is a pyramid system. Therefore, if company cannot pay debts, even though it's not good to wind up the company, it also serves the community that such companies, it is equally not good to let to run such companies, those who cannot pay their debts. Therefore, winding up serves the community at large, as it is not good for society that companies who are insolvent are able to continue. And also during the winding up, if there's any fraud, whatever, they can be revealed, right? And also winding up prepare the company toward its end. In the winding up, a person called liquidator is appointed. In the winding up, a person called liquidator is appointed. Winding up is also known as the liquidation. Right? A liquidation is if a winding up is a paralyzed person, at the end of the winding up, if the companies are dissolved, there's a death list, then the liquidator can be considered as a person who is in charge of the burial or cremation. Right? So basically, winding up pension, where we file the winding up pension? Winding up pension है कभी सामने कोई तो file कर? तो मैंने wind up करना कोई तो file कर? हाँ?
Register of law.
अच्छा, okay. Winding up pension file करने को definitely cost लगा है, right? उसका वेतन मुखा दूसरा है क्या मांगा? Which court? Civil court किया जाती है ने रखती फिर दास पाला के बने मंगल दाने को रेशिया दाने कमाल but from the confinement, finding up case, almost all the cases dispute related to companies shall be filed before the commercial high court. Right? Commercial high court is a company also. Any dispute related to the companies must only filed before the commercial high court. Separate court to hear the complaint matter. Therefore, while in that case it's also related to companies, only the commercial high court has the jurisdiction to hear the winding up petition. Right? So the commercial high court, there are people attached to the commercial high court as liquidators. Right? The companies also can appoint liquidators that depend on the type of winding up. Right? So if the liquidator is appointed, so he takes portion of the company's assets. He takes portion of the company's assets, then he collects all the assets of the company, and then he has the right authority to pay the cost of the winding up and other creditors. Then if there's any surplus assets, then they will be distributed among the members according to the articles of association or according to the contract they may have with the company. And then the company is dissolved. Until company is dissolved, until dissolution, even during the time of the winding up, company continues corporate state. Winding up, no company until. Right? Still there's a corporate. You can dissolve the stainless steel. What happens is the directors are not permitted to be in the office once winding up is commenced. Directors are in the especially the court winding up. Voluntary winding up here from court winding up here, directors are in the they have to resign. So all the powers of the directors are also given to the liquidator. Once liquidator is appointed, he has very wide powers. We already discussed. He takes all the powers of the board of directors. He has the power to pay any creditor or all the creditors. He has the power to pay all the official expenses like court expenses and other expenses. Sometimes in Western countries, they are very powerful. Lanka is a Maharku business. They are like, business. Looking at the business, you look at some, they are liquidators, they are doing a great job. Somehow liquidators are not made. Bankrupt companies are not because they have such a wide powers. And they never will try to wind up the company when they are running. They try to at least sell. Wind up the one who can be good at look at while someone who can disclose that. Administratorship recovery, liquidator recovery, it was it. They try to sell it as a going tax. Because they are expert of that. Then ETI again, so ETI got the gum of the on the next sign of ETI again, at the end of access to the company. Called PT, but the Mulita assess the open Hasla Pahan or Porto, somebody is in there. Effective lower the development. Other Miss done it there. Miss winding up case done and golden key or other winding up case at them. They go behind the politicians and file a human rights. Business and human rights case are there. Golden key, human rights country, celebrate the case. Golden key case. This is a very good human rights case, but it serves no one. Human rights can take on the case because human rights cases we only can sue against the government. But golden case of private institution, private company. But it was science. It's a human rights case. Human rights thing on the case. But they did was they made the first respondent central. Golden key company was the second respondent. In my goal, not that. It was take accepted. Right? You will give it. It's a duty of the central bank to regulate the financial institution of the country that they have made. Therefore, they have made the central bank first respondent. The golden key was mentioned as a second respondent. Even though my file diagram, anyway, it was accepted. Therefore, they did a very good human rights case. But I get a card of big filters or Google Pass. I put name. Human rights case on Supreme Court. They will not have business can share the human rights case in that even a human rights expert in Alua. They did know nothing about the business. One of the foreign companies was happy to pay all the creditors. Settlement at the end of the but it was not settled. When if a case is filed, a wind-up case is filed before the commercial high court, they are expert in commercial matters. Company so basically, they will collect all the assets. Even in the golden key assets, if their assets were sold, 80% creditors should be paid for. Equivalent assets to 80% creditors sorry, all the creditors are 80% given assets to. They needed 100% plus interest. This is the bank of Mama. Can look around the money. Right. ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඕන 100% ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ සල්ලි ඒක ඉන්ට්‍රස්ටිං. අන්තිමට සත පහක්වත් නැහැ. කොලෙස්ටරෝල් ඇදලා, sugar ඇදලා මැද ගියා සමාකයි. Because there were some people, even I know, after their retirement, all the ETF fund was deposited the golden thing because of the attractive interest rate. අවුරුදු 32ක් වැඩ කරලා මුළු EPS එකම ගියා දාන golden key එකේ because of attractive interest rate. Next, අදක බැංක් එකක් වුණා ළමයි කවදාවත් වැඩ කරේ නැහැ වගේ සත පහක් නැහැ. ඉතින් මාද ස්ට්‍රෙස් එන්නේ මේක ඇත්තම වල ගන්න සංගදාතුනේ කවුද නේ? ටිකටර්ස්ලා ඇක්ටර්ස්ලා නේද? තාමත් ක්‍රිටර්ස්ලා මීටිං වල සවන්න මලව ඇතිලා සලාජ්‍යසුල ගැටි විගොල් වෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ සැලෙන් තමයි ඒක. ඒ අතර අර වගේ සිස්ටම් එකක්. තමන්ගේ EPS එකේ ඔක්කොම දාපු ඒගොල්ලන්ට 80% ගෙවන්න තියුණා විකුණලා. නමුත් they expected 100% plus interest. That's it. Therefore, the people also should have some at least a fair knowledge. Right? Because when you invest, you should have some type of knowledge. Right? So, those banks of companies belong to whom you think? Throughout the lessons we have learned that shareholders are the owners of the company. Right? That's what we all know. Right? But is that true for the bankrupt company, insolvent company? When I make a dana, obviously, company bank insolvent to come. In fact, according to the facts and law, shareholders are owners of the company when the company is sold. Right? Insolvent companies belong to creditors. Insolvent companies belong to creditors. Company insolvent now, you know, it's a card again. Shareholders are the IT card again. There's no guarantee for the owners, shareholders that their investment will be paid back. Even though I can't go Islam creditors, they have the priority. Therefore, in practice, creditors become the owners of the insolvent companies. You know, they have to know that this is our company. Right? අපි කොහමද වද ලික්විඩේටර් ගෙන් දාලා මයින්ඩ් අප් කේස් දාලා අපිට පුළුවන් තරම් ගන්න එක ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතන්නේ. අපේ මොකද කරන්නේ? they know nothing about the business නේ. මේක මේගොල්ලෝ මේ කම්පැනි ක්‍රෙඩිටර්ස් ගන්න නැහැ මේ ගිරිපොලියට වගේ සල්ලි දාලා ඒ වගේ ඒගොල්ලෝ හිතන්නේ නේද? ඒක ගන්න ඉතලා පොලිටිෂියන් වල පස් කරනවා, පොල් දානවා, කුණු හarp කියනවා, කෑ ගන්නවා. මොකද වෙන්නේ? නේද? උඩට සන්ග්ලාස් දාගෙන රතු තෝල් කරගෙන උඩ ඉහළගෙන කුණු හarp කියනවා. පොල් ගන්නවා. නේ? ඩිරෙක්ටර් තමයි යන්නේ. මොකද ඒක වෙන්නේ? රිසල්ට් එක මොකද වෙන්නේ? එහෙම පබ්ලික් ගුඩ්විල් එක නැතිනවා. දැන් මුන්ට ඉතුරුලා තියෙන මොකද ස්ටේටස් එක තමයි? Those assets were sold and they are distributed among the creditors. But because of their action, what will happen at the end of the day? ඒකයි කම්පැනි එකේ ETI එකත් එක තමයි. උන් ගිල පොල් ගහන්න කරනවා බය ගත්තාම මොකද වෙන්නේ? 100 දෙන ෂෙයා එක 10. Right? That is available for sale. Right? ඒක තමයි මගේ කීපදෙනෙක් ගත්තා එකේ ඒ දවස්වල කෝටි 6ට ගන්න පුළුවන් ගෙවල් නෙම කෝටි 7කට වඩා තමයි ගත්තේ. මොකද gold ETI එක ගාම කීපක් ගන්න. goodwill එක නැත්නම් නැති. share value ගොඩාක් දැස්සම. Right? So it is done by the creditors. අන්තිමට අර කෝටි 6ක් කම්පැනි එකට කෝටි 7ක්. ඒගොල්ලෝ විසින් මේගොල්ලන්ගේ ඒ ඕවා සාමාන්‍යයෙන් නියම creditors වල කියන්නවත් හොඳ නැහැ මේක බැංකක් කියලා නේ. පත්ත වලට දේවල් වලට එහෙම ගිහිල්ලා යන්නේ නැහැ නේ. පොළෙන්ම විකුණන. දැන් සිතලා එනවා මම කිව්වේ that's a liquidator short. නේ ටක්කා දැපල් කරනවා. එයා කියන්නේ කම්පැනි බැංකක් කියලා. හොටෙල් එකක් නම් යා මොකද ගන්න? He wait until December or August or some whatever until some orders comes in. Then there are some orders, then he will try to sell it that as a going concern. At least to maximize the credit for the credit. ඒකල එහෙම එක අපිට අතට. මොකක් හරි කියලා මේක පහලා දාන්නේ කියලා යන එකක් ඉදිරියට පිටවෙනවා. අපේ කර්තිය මොකද? මේක බෑන්ක් මේ කුටු එකකට වෙනම දෙලා මේස් එකකට වෙනම දෙලා ගන්න යනවා. That's because these are not that developing country. These are the very good examples from any of those cases. No one will file a Lanka case. They file one, some other cases, that case, and so that. So that serves no one because only few people know that it is the creditors are the owners of the insolvent companies. Therefore, they have to make sure to run and protect their company. Right. So, liquidate together cases. There are some liquidators, they have even able to run the bankrupt companies in foreign countries. But in Sri Lanka, that never will happen. Right? Our liquidators are very intelligent and so they want to do it, right? Even if the ETA is. What's the new situation of ETA? But they don't come. Mandasa can central bank they know nothing about the business, right? Lanka public interest, business development. They are the business expert. Right? Official capacity. Central bank they know nothing about it. Right? Then minimize what is in time for the countries. So like economic periods, may go happen. On the league administrator does you administrator who can another? They might wait from it. Right. Therefore, that is but I saw even the once a very beautiful statement done by I like him mainly because he loved animals. Fantastic. He also loved pets. Right? Do you think how the Hari on the Salikar on the Tiganagat right? Salikari Kawadawa, but you do not recommend it. You get the Kawadawa, but again, not I think it is true. Saman about Valakapan, a paper team, again, you know what I can put, again, it other believing color get it. No, that's true, right? Well, about to give a kill to my other Sally leaders are the time to the other got the man to the getting another happened. Right? It's a DVT Parakari on the person, on the educator to on the side of the casting band, definitely that business. Right. We can do this lesson next week. Okay, thank you.